The youth of a church wanted to invite me, so they told their pastor, and their pastor was like, Obiwon. That Obiwon on my altar? Never. So you can imagine what that does to your psyche.
Yeah.
Like as an R&B pop artist, I started, having thoughts and dreams about like what really is my purpose. I was like really searching. I didn't have a Pentecostal background. In fact, I didn't discover music in the church choir most. I didn't. We all have to find our way around it, find our way to deal with rejection. One thing I know about it is God doesn't leave you absolutely rejected.
I like that. Do you regret going into gospel music?
Yeah, that's really diving into the deep end.
Yeah. My first question is, do you regret going into gospel music?
Yeah, that's really diving into the deep end.
Yeah.
I don't.
Right.
I don't, because my convictions are very, very strong. And my convictions are deeper than what you might see on the surface.
Okay.
Because on the surface, it will appear that I've not had as much success with it as like when I was in secular music. But what brought me into it, it's not even the music.
Okay.
It's not even the the desire for career and all that. But what brought me into it was like a personal encounter that I had, my understanding of life and purpose and what my gift is. And since I have an absolute conviction of what my purpose is, then I'm sticking with it. That doesn't mean there are not challenges there. Let me not give you a sermon.
No, but fine, we're here for the sermon. But when you say the convictions are deeper, what are those convictions?
Okay, yeah, because right along the path for in secular music, just about the time I was really, finding my feet, like as an R&B pop artist, I started, having thoughts and dreams about like what really is my purpose. I was like really searching, because I entered the industry and I discovered that, apart from just the business side of it, there is like a life behind the scene. And I found myself living that life, and I didn't think I was going to end up well living that kind of life. Around that same time, I was beginning to encounter people that I admire, my pop icons. I studied their life, and many, and might not be all, but many didn't seem to end up well. And so I had this persistent fear that I was going to end up like that. So those led me to questions. What is the music for? Is there a God? The faith that my parents brought me into, is it real? So I was at a point that I was really searching and questioning about life. So this happened while I was even still an R&B pop artist. And so basically, my first decision was, you know what? We're just going to make good, clean music and, pursue my career. I mean, I didn't have a Pentecostal background. In fact, I didn't discover music in the church choir most. I didn't have that background.
Right.
I worship music. In fact, I used to tell people that when I used to see those old Don Moen videos and people were worshiping and crying, I didn't understand it. I'm like
what's happening? What's doing you people?
Exactly. I'm like, the music is so melancholic. Yeah. And so I'm like, what's going on here? But when I started discovering that for myself, I started discovering the joys of it. I had given my life to Christ in December 31st of 2006, and just planning to have a clean Sophomore album. The Anglican church where I was worshiping, I got into the fellowship. I started learning how to lead praise worship. So one night as I was, so prophecies started coming over my life. So
in the Anglican church?
Yes, right there. And
I think the Anglicans had a tradition of prophecy.
Well, if you get in deeper, some of the deeper meetings, like the fellowships, and so you will get a lot of that there. So some of the guest pastors that would come would be like, this guy, you will go gospel. I used to reject it.
Why?
I didn't see myself like, how me, R&B fine boy with all my fans and all the females and all that.
Yeah.
You know, so I used to like, no, not me. I'm okay where I am. I'm just doing my clean love songs and stuff. But one particular night, the church wasn't far from my home, so I was just walking back home, and I was just having like a discussion with God, like. In fact, that became the genesis. I love prayer walks. Anybody who lives around me know that that's like one of my best times, just walking and talking to God. So I was just, and just looking at the expanse of the sky. I'm like, God, I didn't know this was what I was missing. I'm enjoying you so much right now. And then I could hear clearly in my heart, then why not giving me the very thing that I'm asking you for? And, at that moment, an impression, just like a realization, really I've not really given all. Because I couldn't deny at that point that God was asking me to give him my career and everything. So I just made up my mind, and I was like, God, you know what? I don't know where this is going to lead to. I don't know what will become of me after this, but the gift is yours anyway. And whatever I've achieved so far is yours. So I'll give it back to you, and let's start the journey. So that's where my conviction started from, and my intimacy with God, really got closer from there.
In my experience, people who are in secular music, who go to gospel music, if they don't become pastors, struggle. There was Sonny Okosun. He struggled badly, even though his music was popular. Onye Konwenu is not really one of the first things you will see at gospel concerts. Ebenezer Obey had to become a pastor, pastoring a church, for him to be. So there is a robust tradition of people who became born again, thought they would decided to give their music careers, as it were, to Christ, but then the church didn't accept them based on what we can see.
Yeah.
What has been your own experience? Did the church accept you?
I would say my experience has largely been the same.
Right. Which means the church didn't accept you.
Yes, yes. I think it's in two parts.
Okay.
First of all, let's talk about the music. Most times, secular artists who, switch to gospel come with a different sound and style that is not the sound you would probably get in church.
Right. Okay.
And so you either struggle to fit into that worship music sound that is the current sound of the church, or you keep your...
Right. That makes sense.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Or you worship God with the sound that you know that is your style. And, so it's not, let me say, sounds that are not the praise worship sound. Let me say they're just beginning, like there seems to be like a revolution around this generation. They're beginning to have acceptance that we could also worship God with rap music, with other styles of music and things. So first of all, there's that tension, that tension between the friction between the sound that the artist is coming with and the sound that the church is used to. Then secondly, the church is the church. The church is my family right now. And so I'll make excuses for this church. We must test all things. Like when I was first starting out, I've had an experience, where the youth of a church wanted to invite me. So they told their pastor, and their pastor was like, Obiwon. That Obiwon on my altar? Never. So you can imagine what that does to your psyche, that rejection. I've had times when I was recommended for something, okay, why don't you come and share your experience here? But when it got to like a panel or like a committee, it was shut down. We don't want that influence.
And
so
I know what that is like.
Yeah.
So you've had those instances when people, when rejection. Yes, I think we should call it by its name.
Let's call it by its name.
Yes,
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Rejection from the tribe that is supposed to be your family. But we all we all have to find our way around it, find our way to deal with rejection. One thing I know about it is God doesn't leave you absolutely rejected.
I like that. I like that. I felt that one.
Why I say that is if you look deep, if you look well, you will see one, two. They might not be the people that you were pursuing. They might not be the very people that you thought should embrace you. But you see one, two people who totally get it, who totally see and understand what God is doing in your life and who embrace you, what's and all.
Yeah.
So, and that's one. And then number two, or even before that, you can't beat God's approval. If you don't get God's approval, rejection will always be a weight. And once rejection is a weight, you will carry bitterness.
Yeah.
You will carry a lot of things that will keep dragging you down.
Yeah.
So I personally have had to come to a point where I'm like, God, my worth, my value is in that you showed me mercy and thought it worthy to send Jesus to die for me. That every other thing is additional. That is my acceptance before you. That is my approval. Your love is what approves me. And as far as I'm sure that I have your love as expressed in Christ, then why should I feel rejected? I will feel rejected sometimes, but if I can get into that zone, in that point where no matter what the world bashes you with, if you can get back into God's presence, then He will strengthen you.
Right.